You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tian. In addition to this show, I write for Cheesehead TV and the Packers Post. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. And Sean, we are in the waiting period of the summer now. OTAs all wrapped up, training camp about a month away. But first, a little message from our sponsor.
Yeah, it's summer vacation, and you may want to keep this in mind before we get started. A few words about our own sponsor, Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. For direct links to specific Packers game tickets, go to packerstalk.com/tickets or browse their website at theticketking.com. Plenty of time to browse while we're on summer vacation, Gil. We're less than a month away, or about a month away until training camp will open up. But I saw online that Jordan Love, he's vacationing in Italy with his girlfriend Ronica, getting the most out of that summer, that little bit of time off before the real deal gets going.
Yeah, I hope he stays away from too many carbs. But yeah, let's let him enjoy himself and rest the body because he's got to prepare for the long grind ahead. And looks like he's having a great time.
Oh, yeah, and hey, you got to fill out that silly body somehow. Yeah,
right.
Jordan Love's got that silly body. You got to fill it up with some carbs. There's some pasta, some fettuccine alfredo. Yeah, I got 25% Italian in me, Gil, so I could say these things.
Go.
So, yeah, I know, obviously, their taste in where the vacation is very, very high. So my opinion of Jordan Love definitely increased just in the last few days.
Very good. And look, I hope he enjoys himself, all joking aside. And look, this is the time. I mean, NFL players do not have a lot of downtime. They're always working hard to keep their bodies in shape and to prepare for the season. So, you know, this little 4-week period is when it's time to do these kind of things. And I'm glad he's taking the time and then hopefully enjoying himself with his girlfriend in Italy.
And this is a good time for us, Gil, maybe speaking of Jordan Love, to rank some guys on the offensive side of the football for the Green Bay Packers, some individual players. Gil and I are going to rank the top 15 players we believe right now going into training camp. Now, I will say a little caveat with my rankings, Gil. I don't know how you did it. I did not include any rookies on this who just got drafted. If you did, that's great to know. That's great. I did not. I personally, I got to see them play at least a preseason game or a preseason snap to have an opinion on them, first of all. This is mainly the top 15 guys, in my opinion, right now, who are the best 15 players on the offensive side of the football. So, Gil, let's start going from number 15. Who do you got at the 15th spot?
These were tough, I do have to say. But at 15, I went with Josh Myers.
Okay, Josh Myers, he's a little higher on my list. I actually had wide receiver Malik Heath right here.
Okay.
And Malik Heath is someone who registered 15 grabs, 125 yards. He caught a lot of hospital balls last year in the preseason, and he just seems like the ultimate team guy. He isn't afraid to block. He isn't afraid to do the dirty work for the good of this football team. Made this team as an undrafted rookie last year out of training camp. When I watch him play, I kind of see a lot of James Jones in Malik Heath's game, Gil. Yep. It just reminds me of that, just a dirtier, grittier version of James Jones.
I could totally see that comparison. I am a big Malik Heath fan. I love a good underdog story, and what he did last year in training camp and during the preseason was outstanding. When he got on the field, he backed it up with some solid play during the regular season. Obviously, the issue with Malik Heath, it's a very deep receiver room. So that's why he didn't make my list, but I love the guy.
And you included, again, rookies. So I'm interested to hear where your top 15 is. What Malik Heath, I will say, if I were including rookies on this list, Malik Heath would not be in my top 15. He'd be on the outside. Right. But right now, he's number 15 on this list. Josh Myers, I'm assuming you got some rookies above Josh Myers, obviously, if you're including that. Obviously, a center who has struggled a little bit. even though he's played every single game the last couple of years, Gil. But pass blocking, not an issue with Josh Myers. Run blocking, a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, and the thing is, his run blocking is not that much worse than many of the other offensive linemen on this team. It's not good, don't get me wrong, but the Packers' overall run blocking was not consistent last year. But when he whiffs, he just whiffs spectacularly.
And Josh Myers, his job is definitely under fire. There's talks of there's been some movement in minicamp with Elton Jenkins maybe getting some run at center. Zach Tom, obviously, that's the big talk, is him moving to center, possibly Jordan Morgan playing right tackle. Well, it will be interesting to see what happens. Josh Myers, though, is entering that contract year. If he can live up to that billing of a second-round pick that he was a few years ago, you're talking about a potential Corey Linsley 2.0, but still a little bit of progress that needs to be made and a lot that needs to be shown for him to obviously move up that list for you, I would think, for you, Gil.
Yeah, and I'm hoping he can do it because they really do need a strong performance from him. But hey, Matt LaFleur always says the best five will start. Let's see, where Josh Myers fits in to that category, or even if he fits into that category. Let's alternate. So your number 14.
My number 14, and right here, this is a guy who he's the mayor of Door County. It's A.J. Dillon. Running back A.J. Dillon is my 14th player. He struggled a bit last year. He only ran for 613 yards, only averaged 3.4 yards per carry. His yards per carry average has dipped every single year since his rookie year, and we've seen what he's capable of doing. He's a very good runner in the cold, and in November, December, January, dealt with the injury bug a little bit at the end of last year, the first time he's really dealt with injuries in his NFL career. But looking at some photos from minicamp, Gil, looks like he's thinned out a little bit, but he's number 14 on my list right now, and it's kind of crazy to think, like Malik Heath, may not be a guy who even makes the 53-man roster coming out of camp this year.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case. I am a big fan of his, but obviously, he's got a lot of competition, and hopefully A.J. Dillon, because he has a different body type and running style than the other players on this team, hopefully they find a spot for him.
Yeah, and I think A.J. Dillon, the best case scenario for him is that, first of all, he improves as a runner, but second of all, he proves to be the only dependable running back in that room who could pass protect. You got to be able to protect Jordan Love. He's about to get some big money coming up soon, very soon, Gil. And if you can't protect Jordan Love, you're going to have a hard time making this roster. If you can, you're going to have a spot. But Gil, I'm curious to hear who number 14 on your list is.
Well, since we're including rookies, I did go with Jordan Morgan in the 14th spot. Not sure if he's going to start as a rookie and where he will play predominantly. Packers had him at all four spots except center along the offensive line during OTAs and minicamp. I think by the end of the season, he will find some kind of regular contributing role, but it may take him a little time. But to ignore a number one pick and not put him on this list, if we were including rookies, I had to put him somewhere on this list.
The timing is everything with this right now. We're recording in June, and minicamp just broke. We've seen some clips online. That's all we've really seen. We haven't seen these guys in actual game action. It was hard. Jordan Morgan would have been in my top 15 if I were including rookies, just based off of being a first-round pick and the potential and everything right there. So I'm with you there, Gil, for sure. Now, number 13. Who's number 13 on your list, Gil?
The only other rookie on the list offensively for me is Marshawn Lloyd. And I think he will sort of be that change of pace back. The coaching staff just seems very enthused about his potential. Excuse me.
Take a second. Yeah, that's okay.
I think he will end up playing a pretty nice change of pace kind of role on this offense. The key for him is going to be, as you alluded to earlier, pass protection.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has the skills to be a decent receiver out of the backfield, and if he gets the ball in space, he could be very dangerous. The key to getting him on the field is whether or not he can pick up blitzes and help protect Jordan Love. I think he will find a role before the season is over, so that's my 13. How about you?
Well, I just want to, before I get to my 13, I just want to say Marshawn Lloyd, he definitely, it sounds like he's going to bring a different element to that running back room. A guy who can be a good receiver on the backfield, really explosive when he gets in the open field. Someone who could break away from the opposing defense, on long runs as soon as he's out in the open. Someone who could beat a safety in a one-on-one matchup. I'm very excited about Marshawn Lloyd. Again, I didn't include rookies, but Marshawn Lloyd would have made my list if I did include rookies as well. Number 13 on my list, it's Big Play Bo, wide receiver Bo Melton. I love Bo Melton. He's one of the best individual stories from the 2023 Packers. He was drafted by the Seahawks, was on the practice squad for most of the year until the Packers signed him to their active roster at the very end of the 2022 season. Then he was on the Packers practice squad for a while. He had a huge performance on New Year's Eve in Minnesota, first receiver from last year's team to hit 100 receiving yards in a game. Obviously earned a full-time spot on the 53-man roster, deservedly so. Jordan Love seemed like it seemed like Bo Melton gained Jordan Love's trust like crazy every single week, every single time he was out there. Seems like a very dependable guy. There's a lot of talent there, and I feel like there's a lot you can do with Bo Melton. Bo Melton's number 13 on my list.
Love Bo Melton, love the story, love the effort he's put in. Here was a guy who was stuck on the practice squad and never stopped working, never stopped giving his all. Great story. Big Bo Melton fan. I hope he builds on what he did last year in 2024.
He was playing some important snaps in the playoffs too. That guy's got a home unless he just sat on the couch and ate potatoes like I did all off season. He that's the only way I don't see him getting a job coming up out of training camp this year. Number 12 on your list, Gil. Who do you got?
I go with Sean Ryan at 12. Okay. I think that he's going to be pivotal. He has first crack at that right guard position, which is, I think, the most up for grabs spot along the offensive line right now. He would add a good run blocking dimension to the right side of this line. I think he was already last year a better run blocker than John Runyon Jr., but his pass protection is inconsistent. He's still learning and making that adjustment from playing left tackle in college to being a right guard in the NFL. I think the job is his to lose. I hope he wins it. So that's where I went on this list with Sean Ryan.
Sean Ryan was an honorable mention. He was just on the outside of my top 15. Even if rookies were included, he was a little further out for me just because the pass pro issues are issues for sure. But the dude's a mauler in the run game. You saw him. What game was it where he was in on one drive and they just marched down the field in the run game? And he was a big, big part of that. You could trust him in the run game. But if you can't protect, again, Jordan Love, that's going to be your franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future. You can't protect him. It's going to be hard to get a job. That's why he's on the outside. But if he can get the pass pro fundamentals a little better and a little more fine-tuned, he's going to be a really, really nice player for Green Bay.
He is. And if it's 4th and 1, I'm running behind him.
Heck yeah.
Him and Zach Tom on the right side, just send me right there.
Yeah, and number 12 on my list was Josh Myers. We already talked about him a little bit. I had him a little higher on my list than you did, Gil. I know, again, there's just some issues here and there with Josh Myers, but I'm going off what Adam Stenovich said last year during the year where he essentially thought he was playing his best football of his career. You hope that can improve and he can continue to play better football this year, especially coming up in a contract year. Underrated little factor right there.
Yes.
Number 11 on your list, Gil.
Number 11 on my list, Dontavian Wicks, coming in at 11. Probably going to be the 4th receiver on the depth chart, which is kind of crazy to think about, but still a guy with so much talent. And, if he makes that second-year jump, he could jump much higher on this list, but I got to see it first.
And with Dontavian Wicks, I feel like this is the point in the rankings where you could have gone multiple ways from like 11 through 6, I feel like. And so this is where we're going to kind of be all over the place, I feel like, with our rankings, especially, Gil. I will say with Dontavian Wicks, he reminds me so much of Devontae Adams. Now, he's not Devontae Adams, but he can be Devontae Adams. Just how smooth he is as a route runner, how quick he is in and out of cuts, his ability to separate from defensive backs. this kid can play, man. And the thing is, obviously, he needed a little bit of polishing coming out of Virginia. That's why he was a late pick in the 2023 draft. But Dontavian Wicks, he caught 39 passes for 580 yards and scored 4 touchdowns last year. His catches and receiving yards are both third on the Packers last season. They got a guy. They got a guy here, a legit threat who I really like. Dontavian Wicks, I'm obviously very bullish on. He's a little higher on my list. We'll get to that in a second. But number 11 on my list was tight end Tucker Kraft. He wasn't a huge factor in the offense until he was pressed into a more of a regular role later in the season. He registered 31 catches, though, and 355 yards, scored a couple touchdowns, also scored a touchdown in that close playoff loss against the San Francisco 49ers in the divisional round of the playoffs. Initially, I was worried this was going to be another third-round whiff by Brian Gutekunst, who's done very well drafting, but third round has just not really been his cup of tea. But, man, it just seemed like when it started to click for Tucker Kraft, it really, really started to click. And I'm excited about the direction Tucker Kraft's going. He's just number 11 on my list, mainly because of the slow start last season.
And I'm right with you because he's number 10 on my list. So
there you go. Good segue.
Yeah, I mean, Tucker Kraft. The thing I love about Tucker Kraft, and he was sort of like a linchpin. The Packers offense improved dramatically in the last 8 games of the season. And that was when Tucker Kraft was thrust into the lineup due to the injury to Luke Musgrave. He served as an outstanding check down or outlet pass. Yeah. Anytime there was pressure, Jordan Love knew he could throw the ball 3 yards, 4 yards down the field to Tucker Kraft, and he gained 7 or 8 yards on the play, maybe even more. And instead of, having it 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 17, if you have to take a sack, you're at 2nd and 4 or 2nd and 3. And Tucker Kraft is going to be there and he can make something happen after he catches the football. So, yeah, I am high on Tucker Kraft, and I can't wait to see what happens if both he and Luke Musgrave are healthy at the same time this year.
And it's just that dynamic tight end duo is so exciting where you don't have just one tight end. You have 2 tight ends, 2 really, really good tight ends with loads of potential. I don't know how opposing defenses are going to cover the Packers and defend the Packers. It's going to be a nightmare. It's literally just Packers are going to be playing chess. Everyone's going to be playing checkers. And but number 10 on that list, that leads me to number 10 on my list, which is Luke Musgrave. Luke Musgrave is number 10, and he is I put him slightly over Tucker Kraft, mainly because he was the number 1 guy. Tucker Kraft did have 3 more receiving yards than Luke Musgrave did last year as rookies. But Musgrave did have 34 catches. He scored a touchdown. Lacerated kidney really slowed down his rookie season, but he was able to come back, had that huge touchdown in that playoff win against the Dallas Cowboys. He brings a speed element to the tight end spot. That's something Green Bay, I feel like, hasn't had since Jermichael Finley. Now, Jermichael Finley is more of a broad tight end. He was a bigger guy, thicker guy, just as tall as Luke Musgrave. But Luke Musgrave, man, I can't, Gil, I don't know about you. I can't think of a tight end that Green Bay has had as fast as this guy.
It's been a long time. I mean, you got to go back to Jermichael Finley. And the beautiful thing about Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft as a duo, it just brings me back to the days of Keith Jackson and Mark Chmura.
Yeah.
And that's really the last time I think the Packers had 2 receivers who had contrasting styles and yet were both dangerous receivers. And we all know what happened the second year those 2 were together.
Oh, yeah. And it's just loads of potential right there and you just hope with these 2 run blocking improves. And as rookies, you had to give them kind of a pass in the run blocking game, because guess what? When you're a tight end going from college to the NFL, that's probably the hardest transition, is having to block NFL defensive ends and linebackers. It ain't college, man. Like it's a totally different ball game, and it's a lot. You need a lot more strength. So you hope that's what you see. That's what I'm looking for from Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. Hopefully they take a leap in run blocking, because if they do, man, play action is going to be a killer for the Green Bay Packers this upcoming season for sure.
Absolutely.
And number 9 on your list, Gil, who do you have? We enter the top 10.
We have entered the top 10. I mean, again, we seem to be thinking along a similar wavelength. So for me, it's Luke Musgrave at this point. So
there you go.
No further explanation needed there. But, the 2 tight ends got to be right near each other on this ranking, especially since statistically they were so close together a year ago.
Oh, for sure. And it's hard to it's Apple. It's like it's just being very nitpicky at this point. Where I'm very happy in general to have both these tight ends. But
Oh yeah.
number 9 on my list is offensive tackle Rasheed Walker. Had his up and downs during the first half of his second season before things really began to truly click for him. After he was benched in the middle of the season against the Rams, returned to the starting lineup. Overall, he was great, Gil. He was legit one of the best left tackles in football after he got benched. It seemed like just things where his mind got right physically, things started to really register for him. Luke Butkus gets a huge credit for what Rasheed Walker was able to do as a second year. And it was kind of funny going into last season, Gil, when we heard Rasheed Walker was potentially going to start, we were thinking, really? Not Yosh Nijman? And
Right.
You could tell where, hey, the coaches kind of know a little more than we do because Rasheed Walker, looked really good. Now, only time will tell if he's a flash in the pan. But, man, if they found a guy who's even 3/4 as dependable as David Bakhtiari was for so long at left tackle, Rasheed Walker will shoot up this list for me.
Yeah, I'm big on Rasheed Walker. And, the amazing thing about Walker, and I give a lot of credit to Brian Gutekunst for this, prior to his last year at Penn State, he was considered a potential first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Had a rough final season in college, fell all the way to the 7th round. At that point, you're taking a flyer on a guy. Why not take a flyer on a guy who showed a lot of ability in the past, but struggled a little bit in his last season? And after a rookie year that was, what did he play? 1 play, 4 plays? I think it was 4 plays on special teams in his rookie year. And then in his second season, when Bakhtiari goes down, he just, right from training camp, he just looked like a different player. I love watching him. It's tough for me to rank a left tackle this low.
Yeah.
But, at this point, he hasn't solidified the position yet as the starter, and that's why I have him here.
And you have him at number 8. So
Yes,
what do you
yes.
know? And number 8 for me was Dontavian Wicks. I just want to say with Rasheed Walker too, credit to him, man. They draft an offensive tackle, the Packers do in round 1, and Matt LaFleur has been very high on him, just saying, yep, it's business as usual for him, where this guy is definitely serious and he cares about his profession. He cares. He wants to be the left tackle for the Green Bay Packers. That's what I'm getting. That's what it just seems like it is, where it feels like to me where him getting benched in the middle of the year against the Rams was kind of that moment for him where, hey, this sucks. This is never going to happen again. I'm never giving up my job again unless I get carted off the field. And man, when you're dealing with an offensive lineman, that's what you want. And he was so good. He was so good from that point on. So yeah, Rasheed Walker, obviously we're thinking the same thing. Dontavian Wicks was number 8 on my list at this point, Gil.
Well, look, great. Dontavian Wicks, great pick. I had him a couple of spots back only because of the depth at the position, but he has the potential to do so much more, and I'd love to see him do it.
And number 7, let's go right there. Who's number 7 on your list?
Number 7, I went with Elton Jenkins at number 7.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. So I got the Elton Jenkins jersey behind me. I'm a little more bullish on Elton Jenkins.
Okay.
And you're probably going to be surprised, but Elton Jenkins, I love Elton Jenkins. I'll talk about him more in a little bit, but number 7 on my list, and mainly because we've seen what he can do. We know how talented he is. It's just a matter of staying on the field, and that's Christian Watson. Yep. And Christian Watson is he's arguably their most explosive, most dynamic wide receiver. The guy has scored, 15, 16 touchdowns in 16, 17 games in his first 2 seasons, but that's the big thing. He's missed 11 games in his first 2 NFL years. He dealt with lingering hamstring issues last year. It sounds like a good thing where he got it checked out, got it really figured out and everything. Christian Watson is number 7 on my list because he's a game changer, but he just hasn't been out there enough.
And that's why I have him in the 6th spot. I mean, it just the potential. He has the potential to be 2 or 3 on this list if he can stay healthy. But you got to. The most important ability in the NFL is availability. He has to show it. And, you mentioned, he's missed 11 games in his first 2 seasons, but he's also been limited in about 5 or 6 others. And that takes a toll. But the thing about Christian Watson, in my mind, is that even if he's not catching the ball, even if he's just on the field,
Yep.
His size and his speed forces defensive coordinators and players to account for him, and that can open up things for other players. He'd be higher on this list if he was healthy regularly.
You just feel like with Christian Watson, he brings these Packer receivers in general bring so many different elements to that passing game. Watson is really, and we have guys who can really go, get the deep ball and they can go get it. But Watson, nobody has his deep ball ability like him. Nobody on this roster does. He is absolutely their number one deep threat. He stretches the field vertically more than anybody else on this roster, and you need this guy to really make the offense hum, in my opinion. I mean, when he's out there, he's so good. But again, that's why we have him a little lower. I agree. He would be top 3 on this list if he was just out there with the numbers if he's scoring 15 touchdowns a year and staying healthy. Yeah, he's going to shoot up my list for sure. Number 6 for you, Gil. You said you had Christian Watson. I had Romeo Doubs, second on the Packers last year with 59 catches, 674 receiving yards. He caught 8 touchdown passes. That was tied for the most receiving touchdowns on the team. This guy is just consistent, strong hands, dependable in the red zone and on third down. He kind of reminds me of Donald Driver, but with less smiling.
I could see that, and we're thinking very much alike because Doubs was my 5, but
there you go.
I mean, he's not the fastest receiver on the roster. He's not the biggest. He doesn't do anything one particular skill outstanding, but he does everything very well. He's smart, and more than any other receiver, I think he has taken the time to develop great chemistry with Jordan Love. And it started in his rookie year when Love was the backup and they were just working together in practice. And I just love, 3rd and 6, you're going to Romeo Doubs to get 7 yards. It just, that's where Jordan Love looks when he really needs a play, intermediately at least, and in the red zone. So yeah, Doubs to me, one of my favorite players on this roster right now.
And he's just got such a quiet confidence. I love that too. He puts his nose in the dirt. He's ready to go. He's ready to work. And that's how a lot of these receivers are in Green Bay. There's no divas. There's no ego. It's all, everyone wants the next guy to do better than them. And hey, who knows? Him and Jordan Love, they kind of had that California connection, both California kids. And maybe that plays a big factor as well. Now, you said Romeo Doubs was your number 5. My number 5 is Jaden Reed. Led the Packers receivers, broke the Packers rookie receiving record with 64 catches for 793 yards in his first season of NFL ball. Both records previously held by should-be Hall of Famer Sterling Sharp, obviously in some terrific company right there, Gil. Scored 10 total touchdowns, 8 receiving, 2 rushing as a rookie. That was 3rd in franchise history behind Billy Houghton and Eddie Lacy for most touchdowns as in their rookie seasons. And I feel like with Jaden Reed, this is who we were hoping Amari Rodgers would be. But he has a lot of Randall Cobb. It's so obvious. There's so much he could do. He could be a special teams returner. He could take the end around sweeps. He can make the tough catches. He can make big plays with the ball. He's Randall Cobb 2.0.
Yeah, although I think he has a little more size than Randall Cobb, and I think that makes him hopefully a little more durable than Randall Cobb. And look, he led the team in receiving yards his first year. How many times does a rookie lead the Packers in catches and yards? And, that hasn't happened too often. He only played, the amazing thing is, 56% of the offensive snaps last year because he started the season as the slot guy. I am high on him, and that's my number 4. So, to me, what a bright future he can have.
And you would think that snap count's going to go up a little more next year, but the depth at the receiver position is so incredible where I feel like any of these guys on the Packers, whoever makes the Packer 53-man roster in the receiver group, they all can play. And I feel comfortable with everyone who is out there, which is, you can't say that too often in the NFL, but just got to take advantage of this situation that they're in for sure. But number 4 on my list, you said Jaden Reed was number 4 on yours. Number 4, it's Jordan Love on my list. And he had a great first year as the full-time starter, completed 64% of his passes, threw for more than 4,100 yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He also scored 4 rushing touchdowns in his first season. His numbers in his rookie year, very similar, in his first year as the full-time starter,
right,
eerily similar to Aaron Rodgers when he took over in 2008 after Brett Favre left for the New York Jets. But the thing is that Jordan Love, man, he was near the top of the rankings among all quarterbacks in the NFL. He didn't just put up good numbers. He didn't just kind of blend in with everyone else. He was near the top of the leaderboard in the NFL in general. He got his first playoff win under his belt. Obviously, a lot to learn from the playoff loss against the 49ers. But Jordan Love, the only reason he's number 4 on this list right now, it's because it's only been 1 year. He's got to do it again. He does it again, he's going to be number 1 on this list for sure for me.
Fair enough. I have him higher, but again, impressed with what he did in his first year as a starter, especially those last 8 games and the 2 playoff games.
And number 3 on your list, Gil, who do you have at number 3?
Josh Jacobs is my number 3. I want to make sure he's back to his 2022 form after a little bit of an off year last year, but I think he's got all the tools to really be a key component on this team. If he stays healthy and he fits in well, and all indications are so far he is fitting in very well, he can be higher on this list even than 3. But to me, right now, Josh Jacobs, he moves up the list if he's healthy, he runs well, and I think if the Packers take full advantage of his potential as a receiver out of the backfield, which the Raiders didn't quite do enough of, I think, during his tenure there.
And for me, and Josh Jacobs is, it may be an unpopular opinion, loved Aaron Jones. I love Aaron Jones. I hope he does well, except for 2 games a year coming up. But I think Josh Jacobs is an upgrade, though, because even in a down year last year, but he didn't have a quarterback with the Raiders. Right. It was a disaster on that offensive side of the football. And he still had a better year than Aaron Jones did. He still had a better year than Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon did. He's an upgrade in that backfield. So I agree with you where Josh Jacobs is just, he's a good runner. He's been a good runner for 5 years. He's still only 26 years old. So he's got a lot of tread on the tires, but he's got a little more to give, I feel like, for sure. But number 3 on my list is offensive tackle Zach Tom. Did miss a start in 2023. He was probably their best offensive lineman and best offensive player, I think, last year for the Green Bay Packers. And if you don't believe me, just watch the Packers 49ers game when he left with a concussion and just notice the drop off on the offensive line and how different it was for the Green Bay Packers. Things were not as smooth as soon as Zach Tom left that game, and it hurt. The only reason that I don't have him higher on this list, or number 1 or number 2, is just because, again, it's the Jordan Love thing where it's been 1 year. He's got to do it another year, or he's going to be top 2 for sure, but he's just been rock solid in general. And Josh Jacobs was number 2 on my list, Gil.
Well, I had Zach Tom as number 2 on my list.
There you go. There you go.
Best offensive lineman, one of the few offensive linemen on this team who graded out highly both as a pass protector and a run blocker, was by far the best run blocking offensive lineman according to Pro Football Focus, so I give him credit for that. His versatility, in my mind, gives him extra points, and as you mentioned, in that playoff game when he went down, the Packers offense was not the same.
Yeah.
So he's going to, to me, he and Elton Jenkins are the 2 guys who we know are going to start on this offensive line if they're healthy. The question is where, and by the way, both of them are the only 2 guys who could play all 5 positions along the line. So It gives them a lot of flexibility. I'm very high on Zach Tom. He's my number 2.
And Zach Tom, I will say, I'll never forget. I had seats right by the tunnel, right by the Packer tunnel, and him jogging down with the neurologist. And I asked, "Hey, you good, Zach? You gonna be back?" And he said, and he just shook his head. He was just, nope. And it was just, at that point, we're just like, come on, just hold on, just hold on for a little longer and get Zach Tom back to play in the NFC Championship game. Number 1 on my list, this is going to be shocking because I know he was number 7 on your list, Gil. It's Elton Jenkins. In my opinion, he's kind of the veteran. He's the grizzled veteran of this group. He's their best offensive lineman, though, in overall. Right now, he is still their best offensive lineman because he's just done it for so long. He's their best player. He solidifies that offensive front. He just makes everything better and more functional, and just things improve for the Green Bay Packers when Elgton Jenkins is on the field. I think he's their most important player on the offensive line. Right now, I feel like he is their best player. But again, if Jordan Love has another masterful season, Zach Tom has another masterful season, Elgton Jenkins may go slide a little bit on this list. But right now, he's my number one offensive Packer.
I love Elgton Jenkins. I just can't put a guard at number one.
And that's hard. And I understand that. I
mean, I love the guy. I think he's one of the better guards in the league. I think he's a Pro Bowl, potential Pro Bowl player every year if he's healthy. But, I had to go with the quarterback, Jordan Love. I just think no other player is going to have as big of an impact individually on the offense as Jordan Love. And when things, not that it was all just Jordan Love in the second half of the year, but when things clicked for Love, things also clicked for the young receivers, the young tight ends, the offensive line clicked. And, the leadership that Jordan Love has showed, even though he's only been the starter 1 year, I love the way he goes about things. When he was the backup behind Aaron Rodgers, he was quiet, but yet he was still working with his young teammates to try to get more done. When he became the starter, he had the voluntary camp out in California for his guys. And the fact that he won over veterans like Aaron Jones and Devondre Campbell before he was even named the starter, I think speaks volumes about him. So maybe it's a cheap answer to put your quarterback as number one, but I had to go Jordan Love.
No, and I totally get that. Again, for me, Jordan Love's probably going to be number one on this list this time next year. He probably will be. Just right now, you got to show it again. It was that second half of last year where he was just maybe the most dominant quarterback in football. Now we got to do it for a full season. Now we got to do it for a full season and take another step and just show that you could do it over and over again. Just some notes real quick. Again, if I were putting rookies on this list, Jordan Morgan, Marshawn Lloyd probably would have been in my top 15 over Malik Heath and A.J. Dillon. Honorable mentions, though, right now were Ben Sims, the tight end, going into his second year, a nice third tight end for the Packers, and Sean Ryan was an honorable mention for me. Gil, before we do wrap up, some kicker news real quick. Just want to get a touch on that. Jack Podlesny was released by the Green Bay Packers today. Packers now have two kickers on the 90-man roster. That's Anders Carlson and veteran Greg Joseph. But Jack Podlesny no longer with the Green Bay Packers, so we're down to two.
Made sense. I expected a move before training camp opened up. And I think that the thing that sort of tipped me off was also that the Packers were allegedly interested in signing another kicker.
Yeah.
So I knew somebody was going to go, and if I had to bet, it would have been, Podlesny. So good luck to him. And I expect we will have two kickers when training camp gets underway.
Yeah, it sounded like there was a lot of interest in Jake Bates from the UFL, and now he's with the Detroit Lions, I believe. So hopefully we're in the right spot with Greg Joseph or Anders Carlson moving forward. Gil, before we get to some trivia, what articles do you have coming up online for the Packers Post, Cheesehead TV? It's not summer vacation for you. It's summer vacation for the Packers, but it's not summer vacation for you.
Well, for Packers Post, I took a look at 5 important questions that both the offense and the defense have to answer as we head into training camp. And for Cheesehead, I'm working on a piece about Jordan Morgan and sort of his development, whether he's going to be more on the Eric Stokes starting as a rookie track or the Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness will bring them along slowly track. So I'll break that down on Cheesehead.
All right. Click, subscribe, do whatever you got to do, folks. Read Gil's stuff. It's good. Anyways, Gil, you ready for some trivia?
Yes, sir.
Well, we mentioned Josh Jacobs, how much of a boost he could be potentially for the Green Bay Packers after he was signed away from the Las Vegas Raiders this offseason. He's been a pretty elite running back in his short NFL career. He's one of 6 players to register more than 5,500 rushing yards, 175 catches, and 45 rushing touchdowns in his first 5 seasons in NFL history. Gil, of these 4 players I'm about to name, which of these players are not part of that elite company? A, Ricky Waters, B, Ricky Williams, C, Ezekiel Elliott, or D, Curtis Martin?
I'm going to go with Ricky Williams.
You nailed it. Ricky Williams. And I'm going to read off the stats because he's almost in that club. It's very, very close. But Williams, he was the 5th overall pick in the 1999 NFL draft, only missed 10 regular season games in his first 5 seasons. He registered 6,354 rushing yards, so he hit that check mark, caught 229 passes, so he hit that milestone in his first 5 years, but he registered 41 rushing touchdowns at that time. He was 4 touchdowns short of being part of that elite company. Still crazy to me that former Bears head coach and then Saints head coach Mike Ditka traded an entire draft to select him out of Texas, but Ricky Williams is an elite runner. And surprisingly, Josh Jacobs is on a list that Ricky Williams isn't, because when Ricky Williams was great and locked in, he was great.
Yeah, he was. And of course, the sight of Mike Ditka wearing a dread wig was also something that is burnt into my memory, unfortunately.
That was TV at its peak, Gil. Yeah. It was TV at its peak.
What we won't say, but yes, TV at its peak.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at GoPackers and at GBPackersOn. Stay up to date on all things Packers, or to ask us questions. Or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And a big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show. Thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.